You'd put, say, 20,000 tons of sulfuric acid into the stratosphere every year, and each year you have to put a little more, and this doesn't, in the long run, mean that you can forget about cutting emissions. We will need to rein in
No,
emissions.
we'll get to it eventually, yeah.
But it
But
does...
in the meantime, we're shrouding the Earth in sulfuric acid.
So people are terrified about talking about this because they're scared that it will prevent us cutting emissions.
Right, and also that it's sulfuric acid.
It
Think you're
is.
bearing the lead. Is there any possible way this could come back to bite us in the ass?
The world as it was at the end of the 20th century. It exists now only as part of a neural interactive simulation that we call the Matrix. You've been living in a dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today. Welcome to the desert of the real. We have only bits and pieces of information. We don't know who struck first, us or them. But we know that it was us that scorched the sky. But we know that it was us that scorched the sky.
Let me ask you this question, because there's a rumor, I don't know if this is true or not, that some scientists are trying to figure out a way to block the sun to try to slow down global warming.
Yeah, it's a measure of the feeling of desperation that some of them feel.
Are they really thinking they could do that?
Well, some of them are seriously proposing, and I think it's completely nuts.
Yeah.
You know, you put another kind of pollution, sulfur dioxide, up to orbit, cover the atmosphere. The sky won't be really blue in the way it is now anymore, but it would block out some of the sun's heat so that we wouldn't have to take the difficult steps to stop spewing all this global warming pollution.
But we know that it was us that scorched the sky.
Blanketing the Earth in sulfuric acid, because I'm all for it. This is the all-chocolate dinner. I still get to have my CO2, and I just need to spray sulfuric acid all over the Earth.
Right question, but we put 50 million tons of sulfuric acid in the air now as pollution, and it kills 1 million people a year worldwide.
Okay, and that's
so
good or bad?
It's terrible.
But it'll be better if we put more in.
We're talking about 1% of that, a tiny fraction of that. So we should reduce that sulfuric acid.
So if it kills 1 million people, and we're only doing
bad.
1% more, we're just killing 10,000 more people.
You can do math.
Okay.
But that's, so killing people is not the objective here.
Killing people, not the objective. I just wanted to be clear.
Actually slowing climate change, actually
Okay.
stopping climate change in a way that could help people this generation, people living now, in a way there's no other easy alternative.
Can you just do it for part of the planet?
Pretty much the whole planet.
No, but could you? Could you just like say, just make things better for the United States?
Very hard to do. It seems that this is mostly global.
But we know that it was us that scorched the sky.
The atmosphere, and of course there are a lot of problems with what they're proposing. It turns out plants need sunlight.
Yes.
It wouldn't stop the acidification of the oceans, and it really should be yet another wake-up call for why we need to stop putting all this pollution up there. We put 90 million tons every day up there. And that's what's drying out the soil, 60% of the country in drought last year. That's what's contributing to the worsening of these fires in the West. West Nile virus, worst outbreak ever last year, Superstorm Sandy. But we need to start speaking up and letting the elected officials know that the future matters to us. Our kids and grandkids matter to us.
But the big fear is that one country will want it one way and one the other, like two frat boys arguing over the thermostat. And in many ways, the biggest fear here, well, we have no idea how to actually agree about how to control the planet's thermostat.
So let's say the United States and China say, yeah, let's do it. But Russia and India say, yeah, not do it.
This is the kind of stuff I wake up sweating about. Exactly.
Well, it's your goddamn idea.
But we know that it was us that scorched the sky.
Drive. Welcome to the Core, everybody. My guest tonight is a Harvard scientist with a new book called A Case for Climate Engineering. That's how you end up with a Sharknado. Please welcome David Keith. Hey, thanks so much. Mr. Keith, Dr. Keith, what do you got? What are you calling you?
I'm good with Mr.
Mr. Keith. Okay, all right. Now you got a little book here called A Case for Climate Engineering. how will we save the planet? Because all the people, all the chicken littles out there are saying the planet is warming up. You don't believe that, do you?
I totally believe it. It is warming up, and I've been thinking about, along with many other people, ways to stop it.
And we need to start cutting down on this pollution.
Well, I think it does matter, but I think a lot of people just aren't educated enough, and it's because a lot of the information is kept from us, because a lot of people in power don't want us to know how bad it's getting and what we can do to change things. And I think there are things we can do to change. Like, give us some examples of what we could do to kind of reverse this.
Well, we need to make choices in our own lives to try to use renewable energy where possible. A lot of utilities allow you to sign up for it. But most important of all, in our role as citizens, we need to speak up, use the internet, connect with others, and let the political system know that we care about this. And, you know, winning the conversation is the key to a lot of changes. I remember when I was a young boy in Tennessee.
Okay, does it involve me using one of those little pigtail light bulbs?
That is a useful thing to do, and I have those in my house, but I'm thinking about something else.
Okay, good. What's the other thing? Because I'd like to do anything other than that.
Exactly.
Okay, so what do we do?
So the other thing is horrifying. It is that you could actually spray sulfuric acid in the stratosphere, 20 kilometers over our head, and use that to stop the planet warming up in a kind of ugly tech fix.
You can spray something into the atmosphere to change. Okay,
spray pollution into the atmosphere to stop it warming.
So in the end, pollution saved them all. We owe pollution. We owe acid rain an apology, is what you're saying.
It would be a totally imperfect technical fix.
Okay.
It would have risks. It wouldn't get us out of the long-run need to stop polluting, but it might actually save people and be useful.
Okay, so how, again, I interrupt you slightly there. How does it work? How many planes are we talking about here? How do you do this?
So let's say you wanted to stop it warming in 2020. You'd start with a fleet of just 2 or 3 kind of modified business jets.
What kind of, like a G6?
Yeah, like a G650.
Like a G6.
That's
like
it.
a G6.
And you put, no, it actually turns out to be an old idea. This was known since President Johnson. And the scientific community mostly decided not to talk about it for fear that people would then lose the threat of cutting emissions.
Now, what happens to the sulfuric acid after it's sprayed? Does it just stay up there?
No, it rains down.
Okay.
But as I said, it rains down.
Okay.
It's a tiny addition to what we're already doing.
Have you gotten some grief for suggesting this?
Sure. I mean, this is like writing a book that's the case for leprosy. But
do you have one of those? Is that next? Yeah, it's a great weight loss plan.
But also, many people are happy that people are finally talking about this, because while it is ugly, it does appear that it really could do some good.
Could an individual start this?
In practice, only a country, a big country.
What about a man in like a hollowed out volcano with henchmen who occasionally shakes his fist at the sky and says, "They said I was a fool at Harvard. Who's the fool now?"
It's the natural worry.
Want to shake your fist?
I won't.
Want to shake your fist and say the fools?
It's the natural worry, but I think in the end, no. This would be done by major countries, but the problem is how countries agree about where to set the thermostat, who decides, and my biggest reason for writing the book and for talking about it is my view that we won't make good decisions in ignorance.
So we have to have the discussion now, so that when it becomes our last hope, people can say, "Hey, we talked about this. Remember, we said we get to do it."
The worst way to make decisions about this would be if we all agree that we won't talk about it in polite society, we suppress it, which is basically what had been happening, and then in 2030, suddenly in a crisis, we make fast decisions.
Maybe it's happening already. You ever look at those planes up there? They have contrails behind them. Maybe all those planes with the contrails, maybe they're actually spraying chemicals into the atmosphere right now, and Uncle Sam isn't telling us.
It seems extremely unlikely.
That the United States is not telling something to its citizens? That seems extremely likely to me. Read the newspaper.
You'd put, say, 20,000 tons of sulfuric acid into the stratosphere every year, and each year you have to put a little more, and this doesn't, in the long run, mean that you can forget about cutting emissions. We will need to rein in emissions.
No, we'll get to it eventually, yeah.
But it does.
In the meantime, we're shrouding the earth in sulfuric acid.
So people are terrified about talking about this because they're scared that it will prevent us cutting emissions.
Right, and also that it's sulfuric acid.
It is.
You're bearing the lead. Is there any possible way this could come back to bite us in the ass?
The world as it was at the end of the 20th century. It exists now only as part of a neural interactive simulation that we call the Matrix. You've been living in a dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today. Welcome to the desert of the real. We have only bits and pieces of information. We